Namaskar. Welcome to another episode of India International. Last week, protests broke out in two different countries, both of which are extremely important from Indian point of view. The first country where the protests broke out, thousands of people took to the streets and then started demonstrations against the government. In the second country, not so many people, not in thousands, but a few people, like the doctors or the teachers or the students, began protesting against the government. The first country, the protests ran across the country. In the second country, these protests were limited essentially to a few major cities. In the first country, the protests were essentially against the elected government and its president. In the second country, the protests were because the elected government was ousted from power. It's not difficult to guess which are these countries. The first country is Russia and the second one is Myanmar. In this episode of India International, I will speak about both, beginning with Myanmar, which is the neighboring country of India. On the day when all of us in India were engrossed understanding and analyzing the budget presented by the finance minister, Chief of the Myanmar's army, General Min Aung Hlaing, ousted the elected government of the National League for Democracy, which was led by Aung San Suu Kyi, the legendary political leader in Myanmar. Military declared emergency for a period of 1 year, declared martial law. They made new appointments in key ministries like finance and defense and foreign affairs and so on. They arrested not only Aung San Suu Kyi, but perhaps the entire leadership of the National League for Democracy. This coup was conducted on the day the new parliament was going to meet for its first session, and many of the leaders of the NLD were arrested and imprisoned even before they went to the parliament. Then on 4th February, the Myanmar military banned the use of Facebook and related applications. Quite naturally, there were reactions against the coup. The United States administration led by Joe Biden threatened Myanmar by new sanctions. They said that they may be imposing new sanctions if the Myanmar's military does not reconsider its decision. United Nations Security Council called for the release of Suu Kyi and other leaders which were imprisoned. Brunei, which is currently the chair of the ASEAN, that is the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, and Myanmar is one of the 10 member countries of ASEAN. So the ASEAN chair, in fact, expressed concern over the developments in the country. They called for a dialogue among the parties, and I quote, the ASEAN declaration also said that they intend that the people in Myanmar return to normalcy in accordance with the will and interests of the people of Myanmar. Number of other countries have also expressed their concern over whatever developments that have taken place in Myanmar on the 1st of February and subsequently. This is regarded as a serious setback to the process of democratization that began in Myanmar just about a decade ago, which had come at the back of nearly 5 decades of military rule in that country. So a brief look into the process of democratization and the struggle for democracy of the Myanmarese people or the Burmese people, if you want. Burma, which is a neighbor of India and which until 1935 was a part of British Indian territory, secured its independence from the British on 4th January 1948, and like India, it also began as a parliamentary democracy. The democracy had a number of challenges, however, it survived till 1962, when the first coup in Myanmar took place. At that time, the army usurped power, dismissed the popularly elected government, General Ne Win became the martial law dictator, and the Burmese army declared that it would now walk on the path of what they called Burmese way to socialism, which actually meant Soviet Union style command economy, but it also meant autarky because the Burmese military then shut the borders and converted Burma into an isolated country. In 1974, 12 years after the coup, the junta introduced a political party called the Burmese Socialist Program Party, or BSPP, and began some sort of one-party system in the country. Throughout the 1970s, there were protests against the military rule, sporadic protests in different places of the country. However, all these protests were crushed ruthlessly, sometimes even using violence against the protesters. And then came the biggest protest against the military rule so far, which is popularly known as the 8888 protest. And this indicates actually the date on which the protest began, and that is 8th of August 1988. This protest began with the students' movement resisting the military rule. It was just a coincidence that around the same time, Aung San Suu Kyi, who by that time had become a British national, she had married a British individual and was staying in the United Kingdom, had come back to her motherland just to tender her ailing mother. And as the protests began, Suu Kyi participated in the protests, eventually to become the leader of the protest. This particular protest was so big that it invited international attention. And perhaps one of the reasons why it invited international attention was the participation of Suu Kyi in the particular protest, not only because she was a British national, but also because of the fact that Suu Kyi is the daughter of the person who is regarded as father of the nation in Burma, General Aung San. As a result of the protest, there were some changes in the military rule in Burma. General Ne Win, who was until then the martial law dictator, was replaced by another military general whose name is General Sao Muang. BSPP was converted into what the Burmese people called the State Law and Order Restoration Council, or the SLORC. The junta agreed to conduct elections in the near future, primarily to pacify the protesters and also pacify the criticism by the international community, which was by then had peaked. 2 years down the line, in 1990, the military junta conducted elections, and the National League for Democracy, which was then a newly formed political party and led by Suu Kyi, came to power with winning 400 out of the total 482 seats. However, at this time, the SLORC, led by Sao Muang, refused to transfer power to the democratically elected government. They instead imprisoned Suu Kyi. They also imprisoned various other leaders of the National League for Democracy, and just in the same manner continued to rule as they had done until then. However, after the 1990 elections, there were some changes that definitely took place in Burma. Now, one of those changes were about the economy, the way Myanmar conducted its economy, and the other change was, in fact, very important change, that Sao Muang's junta reversed the Burmese autarky, which in fact means that the military junta opened the borders of the country. They opened the borders for foreign direct investment. A number of neighboring countries, in fact, started taking advantage of that. And some of these countries, of course, are China and Japan. A lot of other Western investment also started flowing into the country. Military junta also liberated some controls on the businesses, and thus the local business community, local entrepreneurs also started improving their conditions after the 1990s, which in fact meant that for the first time in its history, the growth rate in Burma crossed 3% and started touching 4% per annum. So Burma started growing economically under the junta. However, that was due to the changes that they brought in its economic policy. In the year 1997, two important developments took place, again from the point of view of Myanmar. Firstly, the SLORC was converted into a kind of a political association, which later on became the political party sponsored by the junta. It is called the State Peace and Development Council. And in the same year, Myanmar also joined the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or the ASEAN. Membership of ASEAN actually brought out some changes in the way Myanmar's junta conducted their country. Because membership of ASEAN actually meant abiding by certain international law and certain regulations imposed by the multilateral group, regional group called the ASEAN. Then in the year 2007 came the famous protests. They are known as the saffron protests in Burma and outside. This was a movement again started by the student movement, but the protests were mainly because the Burmese government, the Myanmar's junta, had removed subsidy on the fuel. So the fuel prices were skyrocketed, and thus the protests had begun. Buddhist monks organizations participated in the protests. Junta, as usual, started using their repressive tactics against this particular protest, and a number of monks and other students who were participating actually died in the protest. And thus, the whole episode invited, once again, a lot of international attention to the events in Burma. This forced the Myanmar's junta to change within the country. So they started writing a new constitution, and they vouched for bringing in, again, quote unquote, military-backed democracy and bring in a disciplined transition in their country. Thus, the new constitution came in, and the junta wanted to conduct referendum over the new constitution. In the year 2008, May 2008, the country was hit by Cyclone Nargis, and the condition of the common people in Burma was extremely bad during the cyclone period. However, the junta carried on the referendum on the constitution even amidst those circumstances. As a result of which, National League for Democracy decided that they will not support the constitution, and they will also not support the subsequent elections. One other reason why the NLD was against the new constitution was because the new constitution had reserved 25% of the seats in both the houses of parliament exclusively for appointment by the military junta. And thus, when the elections were conducted in the year 2010, the NLD boycotted the 2010 elections. However, they realized their mistake because in their absence, the elections did not stop, and the military-backed political party won majority. So when subsequently in the year 2012, by-elections were conducted, NLD decided that they would participate, and they won 43 out of the 45 seats which went in for election in that year. The rest is a known history. In 2015 for the first time and 2020 again for the second time, Burmese people were able to bring in political change through elections, through peaceful measures. 2015 and 20 elections took place, and on both the occasions, the NLD was able to win a thumping majority in both houses of parliament. However, within a month after the second election, that is in 2020, the military junta decided to intervene, stop the formation of the new government, and thus there was a coup on 1st of February. So the question arises, why did the military junta took this decision of coup at this particular point of time? There are different explanations given for this particular intervention. But one of the most widely spoken about reason for the intervention is the fact that General Lying, who is now the new dictator and new martial law dictator, he wanted to continue in power. However, he was about to retire in a year or two. By making himself the martial law dictator, perhaps it gives him a chance to remain in power for a longer time. Had there been a civilian government, probably General Lying would have had to give up his power in about a couple of years' time. Whatever the reason behind this intervention by the military and behind the coup, obviously the question is, what happens next? The West has condemned the entire coup. ASEAN countries are not comfortable with whatever has happened. Similarly, India and China are also not happy, and they both have also expressed concern about the events in Burma. So how do we Indians and as a country India should look at Burma? How should we make our future policies towards Burma? How do we look at this entire coup and how should we adjust our policy is a major question that will need to be answered. But before I answer that particular question, I would like to take a look at the other country, that is Russia, and protests in Russia. On the same day, protests in Moscow broke out because one of the major opposition leaders in Russia, Alexei Navalny, was imprisoned. This entire thing has been going on for a while now, in fact. Navalny is a very well-known anti-Kremlin activist. He is also an anti-corruption crusader, and he is the leader of an opposition party in Russia. He was given 2 suspended sentences in the year 2013 first and 2014 subsequently for an accused embezzlement. And these sentences are now converted into actual imprisonment. When he was sentenced for the accusations of embezzlement, people in Russia and people across the world generally had alleged that these sentences were politically motivated. And when in 2016-17, Alexei Navalny began to campaign for the 2018 presidential election, the Election Commission in Russia actually banned him from contesting the election by giving the reason that he has criminal proceedings against him and he has been punished for a criminal offense. And thus, it was proved that the sentences given to Navalny were primarily politically motivated. Now, in August 2020, Navalny was admitted to a hospital in an emergency condition and then moved to Germany, once again in an emergency, because he was poisoned. He spent a few months in the German hospital and then returned to Moscow on 17th of January 2021. Now, when he came back to Moscow, the court decided to convert his previous suspended sentences into actual imprisonment. And then obviously the world reacted to this particular event. Americans have reacted, Western countries have reacted, Germany and France have particularly reacted to whatever happened. People are protesting across Russia. However, India as a country has not actually reacted officially to the Russian protests, neither to the protests nor to the arrest of Navalny. And the reasons are obvious. Russia is a big country. It may not be the superpower of the Cold War era, but it still is a major country. And it continues to be, despite all efforts of diversifying the resources of our weapons. Russia continues to be the major source of weapons for India, even today. In addition to that, we also have made nuclear treaties with Russia, which means that Russia is constructing nuclear power plants, particularly in a place called Kudankulam in Tamil Nadu. Stakes are too high for India to react in either way as far as the Navalny protests in Moscow and other cities of Russia are concerned. And then let me come back to Myanmar now. If Russia is strategically important, Myanmar is also equally strategically important for India. It's a springboard to India's Act East policy. We share a border of 1,468 kilometers with Myanmar, and the India-Myanmar border is actually with, again, three very important states from the point of view of internal security. And these states are Mizoram, Nagaland, and Arunachal Pradesh. Myanmar is also a part of the trilateral highway project, which is being constructed to connect India to Thailand via Myanmar. So it's an India-Myanmar-Thailand highway connecting Delhi with Bangkok via Rangoon. There is also another major project that is being constructed by India, and that is known as the Kaladan Multimodal Transport Project. Kaladan Multimodal Transport Project begins in a port called Sitwe in Burma on the Bay of Bengal. This particular transport corridor is first of all a sea corridor from Kolkata to Sitwe. Then it enters into the Kaladan River and uses the waters of the Kaladan River. And when it goes up to a point where the river starts getting narrow, and from there it converts into a road. And the major purpose of this Kaladan multimodal transport project is to reduce the distance between and create an ease of transport between mainland India on the one hand and northeastern states of India on the other. In fact, for any kind of better connectivity between mainland India and the northeastern states, both Bangladesh and Burma are strategically extremely important countries. And this is another reason why Myanmar is very important for India. 1990s protests, India had actually sided with the National League for Democracy, and they had expressed concern over the inability of the junta to transfer power to Suu Kyi and her party. But the Indians learned very quickly. And from 1992 onwards, the government of P.V. Narasimha Rao at that time and all subsequent Indian governments have learned to live with the Myanmarese junta. The junta has given tacit collaboration to the Indian government, to New Delhi, to overpower insurgents in the various northeastern states of India. It has also enabled New Delhi to compete with Beijing as far as investments in Myanmar is concerned. Today, India has made investments in Myanmar just as China has been making it. And just in order that Myanmar does not go and sit into the laps of China once again, it is imperative for New Delhi to continue to deal with the junta, to keep relations alive, and to keep the diplomatic corridors open as far as Yangon and New Delhi are concerned. Sanctions in the past, whether they were imposed by the United Nations or by the Western countries, it was very obvious that international sanctions against Myanmar have ultimately affected the poor Myanmarese people and not the junta. And that again is one of the reasons why New Delhi is not so much in favor of imposing sanctions on the junta even at this moment. So it is obvious that at this point of time, New Delhi will consider from the point of view of priority of the Indian national interest and not so much from the point of view of Burmese internal politics. There is nothing wrong in doing it. India has ignored totalitarian repressive regimes of Stalin, Khrushchev, and Brezhnev for the sake of its own national interests. And then there is no harm in ignoring the internal dynamics of contemporary Russia or contemporary Myanmar for pursuing the national interest. Thank you for watching, and leave your comments in the comment box below.
Hello everyone. HW News English is 2 years old now. When we started this venture, we promised ourselves one thing, that news should remain free, because right to know is the right of every Indian. But to keep news free for everyone, we need support from some of you. And thus, we have rolled out membership on our YouTube channel HW News English. But mind you, the membership is completely voluntary. The programs that we were doing earlier, that we are doing now, will continue to remain free. First level is a basic level. Here, you can be our supporter by paying rupees 199 per month. This membership gives you certain perks and benefits. The perks include unique badges in front of your name, a live show from Mr. Sujit Nair and from Mr. Akhilesh Bhargava per month for our members. You can also vote in some exclusive members-only polls. Now the second level is Super Supporter. Here you can be our Super Supporter by paying rupees 3,999 per month. This membership will include every perk that comes with basic level. Additionally, our Super Supporters can be a part of a WhatsApp group where we can have discussions and suggestions on various topics. The second perk includes a gift pack with our merchandise. And the third perk is a Google Meet with Mr. Sujit Nair, where you can join the meet and ask your questions to Mr. Nair face to face. Lastly, if you like, we would give a shout out to our super supporters in our programs. So, hope to see you soon with our badges.